Good evening. And welcome to everyone who's joining us on the internet. Well, I hope you didn't have too offensive a week, having to take a look at when you were taking offense at things. It was a worthy endeavor, and it will continue to be a worthy endeavor. I'm sure you found that there were many, many different kinds of occasions which gave rise to offense, and not all of them really bad. If a mate or a lover comes up feeling truly affectionate, extending love, but he or she does it just as you sat down to do something you had been waiting all week to do, it can be offensive. This is not the time. Don't you care about me? Even though caring about you is what's being expressed, don't you care about my wants? I've been waiting to do this. I've been putting this off all week because I have been being loving to you. You see, so not all occasions for offense arise out of calls for love, meaning behavior that isn't loving, but at the bottom line is a call for love. So it boils down to, as I said, the question, why are you choosing to employ offense at that particular moment? What is the self-serving benefit you are trying to achieve? Well, you may have noticed that there are some days where something offends you that wouldn't offend you at all on another day. And you chalk it up to, well, I've had more sleep. I'm more rested. I was a little on edge and exhausted yesterday or the day before. You find some reason for the difference, except it's never the real reason. The real reason that you're less offended or not offended at all on certain days is because on those days you have chosen for and valued your peace more than anything else. And having valued it, you have placed yourself in it. You have allowed it to be the presence, the underlying spectrum of the way you're looking at everything. Now I'm going to carry it a bit further. You always are only faced with two choices, two apparent ways to be. One choice is to choose to listen to the voice for truth, and the other is to choose to listen to the voice for fear. Okay. Now we can take that and redefine it, because that's still very general. And we can redefine the voice for truth as the Holy Spirit. And we can redefine the voice for fear as the ego. This can still be confusing, though, because you can envision them as things different from you, and you can either listen to this thing or you can listen to that thing. And you are something separate from both. But the fact is, as we've been discussing, the voice for truth, which is the Holy Spirit, is what? Nothing more than your right mind. Well, likewise, the voice for fear, which is the ego, is nothing more than the sense of mind you have made up and identified as yourself, constituted with definitions that you likewise have made up, and agreements about definitions that you have entered into with others who are choosing to operate from the standpoint of a made-up mind themselves. So the ego is you might say, in your wrong mind. And the Holy Spirit is you in your right mind. Except, let's be clear, the wrong mind isn't really a mind at all. It's just a collection of ideas that you say, well, these ideas, which it happens aren't true at all or real, but these ideas I am experiencing, and therefore they must be going on in a mind, because I am conscious of them, and they are going on, and therefore they must be going on in my private, personal mind, you see. So you've made this up, and you believe it, except that it's all nonsense. The fact that you believe it, however, means that you make an investment in everything that you've made up. And your investment, you work diligently at so as to make this sense of mind more and more real. And you have to work at making it real because it is pure fantasy and never will be anything more. So, if things get confusing to you as you're thinking about all of the things we've discussed and everything that the Course has to say, if things seem to get too complex and too overwhelming, remind yourself, remember, you only have two choices available to you in the state of being. And these two choices are the voice for truth or the voice for fear. The voice for truth is your right mind, which is perfectly cohesive, perfectly integrated, perfectly singular, perfectly indivisible, but all-inclusive. And the voice for fear is a conglomeration of definitions that you have put together, which is no mind at all. But with the investment of your faith in it, it seems to be real. The voice for truth, which is you minus the appendage of an imagined mind, are perfectly clear, are perfectly at peace, are perfectly able to see everything that is going on, everything that confronts you, as God appearing and nothing less. But when you're giving your allegiance to this appendage, this imagined appendage, it causes everything that you experience to be offensive, to be that which calls for you to constantly be in a state of defense, ready to be offended, ready to magnify the differences between you and everything else. So, we're still talking about getting your own mind straight. getting your own head on straight before entering into the, let's say, arena of being an agent for change for your brother. Being aware of when you are offended and examining why it is you're choosing to be offended is a form of mental discipline that will enable you to catch yourself before you express the offensiveness and choose for the other voice. Choose for the other teacher, so as not to seem to reinforce the appendage, but to rather allow that which is your real mind to fulfill itself as you, right where you are, in that moment, in that place, in that circumstance. Okay, let's go to the book. The next section is called The Investment in Reality. I don't see anything here coming up that talks about, well, we have the sane curriculum coming up. That sounds pretty good. Nothing here, though, about the investment in offense. Nothing about investment in all the wonderful things you've made up. Interesting. Okay. I once asked if you were willing to sell all you have and give to the poor and follow me. Now, we really could put these in a different order that would reflect the truth a little bit better. And indeed, it is what I meant when I said it the first time, but I've been saying it over and over in every encounter I've had with any of you. It could say, I once asked if you were willing to follow me. In other words, abandon your independence and yield to something other than your so-called private authority. And sell all you have, meaning abandon all of the definitions you've made up, all the confidences you have about what everything is and what it's for, and who you are. And thirdly, give to the poor. In other words, shift from getting to giving. And indeed, all of you I know would love to get to the giving to the poor part. That's the fun part, right? Selling all you have, following me, that's not the fun part, but oh boy, giving to the poor. See, the ego, the way you're conditioned, the way you have conditioned yourself to think, and the way everyone else has helped condition you to think, is that you and someone else are different. And of course, it's better if you're in a position to give to the others than to have to receive from others, right? Nothing quite so insulting as to be the one who is in need. Well, it's going to be disappointing for you. Because in the process of getting your head on straight, you're going to arrive at the awareness that there aren't really any poor. And the recognition that there aren't any poor is the gift you give. But it's already given in the recognition. You don't have a recognition that then allows you to still have poor to give to. The reason you arrive at a point of recognizing there aren't any poor to give out of your great beneficence to is because you discover that you and your brother are both Christ already. And you insist upon operating from that standpoint. And so you end up being in a position of relating to your brother in acknowledgement of what he is, not in illuminating what he is to what he isn't. In other words, the transaction, the communion is complete in the recognition of what he is, the acknowledgement of what he is, because you had no other agenda on your mind for yourself or for him than to see God there from God's eyes. So don't jump to the conclusion that, oh boy, now we're coming to the part here about helping the poor, about being an agent for change for my brother. No, we're still at the point of getting your heads on straight. I once asked if you were willing to sell all you have and give to the poor and follow me. This is what I meant. If you had no investment in anything in this world, you could teach the poor where their treasure is. What's that mean, if you had no investment in anything in this world? The only thing you could have investment in this world are the definitions that you have made up about it, which have caused you to be, quote, like God, unquote, and given you, in your independence, a credibility that you don't really have. If you had no investment in any of the definitions you applied to this world, what? You would be free of your bondage to those definitions, and that would free you up from the definition you have of yourself, and what? A miracle could happen. A sudden shift of perception could happen in you. If you had no investment in anything in this world, you could teach the poor where their treasure is. Why? Because you would have found where your treasure was. The poor are merely those who have invested wrongly, and they are poor indeed. They're without a birthright, aren't they? Every one of you is experiencing, existing, minus your birthright. Why? Because you do not believe you are the direct expression of God. You do not believe that you have a source outside of yourself. I'll put it that way. A source other than your own best ideas about yourself. Or a source that is purely physical and organismic, like coming from a sperm and an egg. And not knowing who your father is, not knowing what your source is, you don't know what your birthright is, and you don't know what you are. and that is indeed poor. Without your birthright, you are nothing. The poor are merely those who have invested wrongly, and they are poor indeed. The orphans are merely those who have no father and are without a birthright. Okay? Because they are in need, it is given you to help them, since you are among them. Now, it is given you to help them as you are abandoning your devotion to your orphanhood and are letting God back in and are choosing to join with the Holy Spirit and to abandon your absolute but imaginary authority over your life and over your world. Because those who confront you, who don't know of their birthright, are in need, it is given you to help them, since you are among them. See, don't leave it up to God. Don't leave it up to the Holy Spirit. Don't leave it up to somebody else. You're here. You're here to make the gift of the clarity you are letting in. You're here to be what you will be when you aren't finding value in offense. Consider how perfectly your lesson would be learned if you were unwilling to share their poverty. Let me give you an example. Every time Paul sits down at a gathering, he turns to me. He doesn't turn to you. He doesn't look to you to learn of you or of life. He turns to me. He doesn't turn to himself. He abandons this one he thinks he is, this one with all the definitions that he uses when he's not joined, when he thinks he's alone, and when he thinks he's in that marvelous egotistical position of authority, you see. And so he turns to me. And with me, he is present with you. When any of you asks a question, he does not assume that he is supposed to answer it. He doesn't assume that you're asking him. And he listens to me respond. Now, when you turn to your right mind and ask, you get the same answers. And you're not making them up. You see. And you're more interested, you're more devoted to the unity of awareness that you experience when you are listening for the truth from your right mind. And if you can't quite make that come together and happen, then go ahead and say that you are listening to the Holy Spirit. Because you do not place any limits conceptually on the Holy Spirit. No matter what words any of you use to ask your questions, your words express your ignorance. They do not express clarity no matter how clearly you express them, no matter how intelligently you put together the meaning you're trying to convey so that you might get out of a problem. So it would be foolish for Paul to listen to you and the words you are saying in order to grasp what you're trying to mean. But your meaning is there. You are expressing words about a distress you're having. But at the bottom line, what you're saying is, here is the way it is looking to me, and I do not know how to look at it or see it differently. Can you help me see it differently? You don't say that because you want the answer to specifically address the problem as you see it and what the solution will have to be in order to be a solution. And so you're still caught in the tininess of your mindset. You see? So, is Paul going to shift his devotion, his attention, to what you're saying and his best interpretation of what you're meaning? Is he going to honor you enough to be so present with you that he doesn't bother to join with me? No, that's not the way Paul works. The devotion has to remain with that which is singular, that which is awake, that which knows the truth. In order to speak, communicate, extend the awareness that undoes the confusion that you, asking the question, have expressed, so that you are no longer confused. Now, let's say that Paul has done a weekend workshop, been active for 2 full days, participating in the question and answer process that goes on. And at the end of the second day, it's over. But early the next morning, someone who was attending the gathering is still there and comes up and says, "Can I just ask one more question? I have a really, really important question." And Paul says in his mind, "God, give me a break. I mean, don't you have any respect for me? Don't you think I deserve any time for myself?" You see, oh, offense, offense, offense.